Good evening. I'm speaking to you on a day that marks a definitive turning point in modern American history. It has been exactly 1 year since the second inauguration of Donald J. Trump, and tonight, we are taking a comprehensive look at a nation and a world fundamentally transformed. From the halls of Congress to the streets of Middle America, and from the front lines of global conflicts to the trading floors of Wall Street, the America First agenda is no longer a set of campaign promises. It is the operational reality of the United States government. Tonight, we analyze the impact, the controversies, and the seismic shifts that have defined these first 365 days of the Trump administration's second term. We begin tonight with the state of the American economy and the aggressive restructuring of the federal government. 1 year ago, the administration promised to dismantle the administrative state and the Department of Government Efficiency, led by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, has moved with a speed that has stunned even the most seasoned Washington insiders. In the last 12 months, we have seen a reduction in the federal workforce not seen since the post-World War II era. The administration claims these cuts have saved taxpayers hundreds of billions of dollars, but the human and operational cost is now coming into sharp focus. Major regulatory agencies, from the EPA to the Department of Education, are operating with skeleton crews. Proponents say this has unleashed a new era of American industrial productivity, citing the surge in domestic manufacturing and energy output. Critics, however, warn that we are flying blind, with essential oversight on everything from environmental safety to consumer protection now effectively neutralized. The markets have reacted with a volatile optimism. While the S&P 500 reached record highs in the autumn, the looming threat of universal baseline tariffs has kept global markets on edge. The president's insistence on a 20% tariff on all imports, with significantly higher levies on Chinese goods, has triggered a game of geopolitical chicken. As we speak, American retailers are grappling with the reality of supply chain shifts. And while some domestic sectors are booming, the cost of living remains the central concern for the average household. The administration argues that the short-term pain of trade reorganization is a necessary price for long-term sovereignty. But as we enter year 2, the question is how much more of that price the American consumer is willing to pay. Turning now to the border, perhaps the most visible and controversial pillar of this administration's first year. Operation Aurora, the largest mass deportation effort in American history, has moved from a campaign slogan to a logistical reality. Over the past 12 months, the Department of Homeland Security has significantly increased its detention and removal capabilities. The scenes at the border and in major metropolitan centers have been nothing short of historic. We have seen unprecedented legal battles between the White House and sanctuary jurisdictions, with the administration moving to withhold federal funding from cities that refuse to cooperate with ICE. The social and economic impact of these removals is being felt across the country, particularly in the agricultural and construction sectors, which are reporting acute labor shortages. The administration remains undeterred, stating that the rule of law must be restored, while civil rights organizations continue to challenge the constitutionality of these sweeps in the Supreme Court. It is a legal and moral tug-of-war that is nowhere near a resolution. On the global stage, the Trump doctrine has effectively upended the post-Cold War international order. In the last year, we have seen a fundamental shift in America's relationship with its closest allies. The president's pay-to-play approach to NATO has forced European nations to increase their defense spending at a pace unseen in decades. While the administration points to this as a victory for the American taxpayer, the traditional security architecture of the West is under immense strain. In the Middle East, the expansion of the Abraham Accords has remained a top priority, but the regional stability remains fragile as the administration maintains its maximum pressure campaign against Tehran. Perhaps most significantly, the administration's stance on the conflict in Ukraine has forced a stalemate. By leveraging military aid to bring all parties to the negotiating table, the White House has signaled a move toward an America First isolationism that has left Kyiv and its European backers in a state of deep uncertainty. The president's supporters call it the return of peace through strength, while his detractors call it an abdication of American global leadership. Domestically, the political divide has only deepened. The 119th Congress remains one of the most polarized in history. The Republican majority has moved aggressively to codify the president's executive orders into permanent law, but the resistance from Democratic governors has created a patchwork of two different Americas. From reproductive rights to climate policy, the legal landscape of the United States is increasingly determined by which state line you are standing behind. The judicial branch, reshaped by a new wave of conservative appointments to the lower courts, has largely acted as a firewall for the administration's policies. However, As we look toward the 2026 midterm elections, the central question is whether the MAGA mandate remains as strong as it was on that Tuesday in November 2024. As we move into the second hour of our broadcast, we look at the culture of the White House itself. It has been a year of rapid turnover and high-stakes decision-making. The influence of non-traditional advisors has never been greater, and the disruptor mentality that defined the campaign has become the standard operating procedure for the executive branch. This has led to a government that is more agile in some areas but significantly more unpredictable in others. For the millions of Americans who voted for this change, this first year has been a validation of their belief that the system needed to be broken to be fixed. For those who opposed it, it has been a year of unprecedented alarm. But regardless of where you stand, there is no denying that the America of January 20th, 2026 is a fundamentally different country than it was just 12 months ago. In the coming weeks, the administration is expected to unveil a new tax package aimed at making the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act permanent, while introducing new incentives for American-based cryptocurrency firms. The synergy between the White House and the tech elite has never been more apparent, as Silicon Valley figures play an increasingly central role in shaping national policy. We are also tracking a major shift in the Department of Education, where Secretary Tiffany Justice has begun a massive decentralization effort, moving federal funds toward school choice initiatives and away from traditional public school systems. This move has sparked a wave of protests in major cities, while gaining praise in rural districts seeking more local control. In terms of energy policy, the United States has officially surpassed all previous records for domestic oil and gas production. The administration's Drill Baby Drill initiative has seen the reopening of vast tracts of federal land and offshore areas for exploration. While this has contributed to a decrease in domestic energy prices, it has also triggered a series of lawsuits from environmental groups in several blue states. The White House maintains that energy independence is the cornerstone of national security, especially as global tensions remain high. We are also seeing a renewed focus on nuclear energy, with the administration fast-tracking permits for small modular reactors as a way to provide long-term power for the nation's rapidly expanding AI data centers. Looking toward the horizon, the geopolitical focus remains squarely on China. The administration's decoupling strategy is in full effect, with new restrictions on the export of high-end semiconductors and a massive push to bring pharmaceutical manufacturing back to U.S. soil. This economic warfare is mirrored by a buildup of American naval presence in the Indo-Pacific. The administration asserts that this is the only way to deter a potential move on Taiwan, while critics warn that the risk of a miscalculation has never been higher. As we mark this one-year milestone, it is clear that the Trump administration is not just looking to lead the world, but to fundamentally redefine America's place in it. The social fabric of the country is also undergoing a profound realignment. The Department of Justice, now under new leadership, has pivoted its focus toward what it calls restoring civil order. This has involved a surge in federal resources to combat urban crime and a more aggressive stance on federal drug laws. At the same time, we are seeing a national debate over the role of the federal government in personal liberties. From the controversial decisions on religious freedom to the ongoing battles over the reach of federal agencies, the Supreme Court is poised to have another historic term. The conservative majority, bolstered by the president's recent appointments, seems ready to continue its path of originalist interpretation, which many see as the final dismantling of the New Deal-era legal framework. As we close this segment of our special report, it is important to reflect on the sheer volume of change we have witnessed. In 365 days, the administration has touched nearly every aspect of American life. Whether you see this as a long overdue correction or a dangerous departure from democratic norms, the reality is that the momentum of this presidency shows no signs of slowing down. The next 3 years will likely be defined by how the American people respond to this radical shift in governance, and whether the 2026 midterms will serve as a referendum or a reinforcement of this new direction. We are also monitoring a developing situation in the financial sector, where the administration's push for a strategic Bitcoin reserve is starting to gain traction in the Senate. This move, championed by figures like Elon Musk and the Treasury Department, aims to position the United States as the global leader in digital assets. If passed, it would represent one of the most significant changes to American monetary policy since the end of the gold standard. Economic traditionalists warn of extreme volatility and a potential threat to the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency, while proponents argue it is the only way to maintain American financial dominance in a digital age. Meanwhile, in the realm of public health, the administration has begun a comprehensive audit of the CDC and the NIH. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., serving in a high-level advisory role, has been tasked with what the president calls making America healthy again. This initiative has already led to new proposals for food safety regulations and a reevaluation of national vaccination schedules. The medical establishment has voiced strong concerns about the potential for a decline in public trust and the resurgence of preventable diseases, but the administration remains committed to its promise of challenging the status quo in the healthcare industry. On the cultural front, the administration's focus on patriotic education has moved into the national spotlight. The newly formed 1776 Commission has released its final report, which is being marketed as a mandatory curriculum for schools receiving federal funding. This has set up a massive legal battle with several states that have their own established educational standards. The clash between federal mandates and state sovereignty is becoming a recurring theme of this presidency, echoing the tensions of the mid-19th century. As we look at the international reaction to the first year of the Trump II era, the consensus is one of profound adjustment. Leaders in the global south are increasingly looking toward a BRICS Plus alliance as a counterweight to American economic pressure. In Europe, the strategic autonomy movement, led by France and Germany, has gained new urgency as they realize that the American security umbrella can no longer be taken for granted. In Moscow and Beijing, there is a cautious observation of the internal divisions within the United States, as they weigh their own strategic moves in a world where the old rules no longer apply. Tonight, we have seen that the Trump administration's second term is not merely a continuation of the first. It is a more disciplined, more focused, and more aggressive effort to reshape the American state. The institutional checks and balances that were tested during the first term are now facing a far more coordinated assault. The coming years will determine if the foundations of the republic can withstand this degree of structural change, or if we are indeed entering a completely new era of American governance. The story of 2025 has been one of disruption. The story of 2026 will likely be one of entrenchment. As the administration continues to fill the ranks of the federal government with loyalists and move forward with its ambitious agenda, the resistance is also organizing. From the legal community to the grassroots level, the opposition is preparing for a multi-front battle that will culminate in the 2026 midterm elections. The stakes have never been higher, and the path forward has never been more uncertain. As we reach the conclusion of this special broadcast, we want to remind our viewers that the events of the last year are just the beginning. The president has made it clear that he intends to use every day of his term to fulfill his promises to his base. Whether those promises lead to a more prosperous and secure America or a more fractured and isolated one is the question that will define the next chapter of our history. We will continue to follow these developments with the same commitment to facts and analysis that you have come to expect. Thank you for joining us for this special hour. I'm speaking to you from the heart of a nation in transition. The news never stops, and neither do we. From all of us here at the network, have a good night, and we will see you tomorrow.